welcome back. So I'm going to attempt to make no, actually it is very successful. The attempt of getting them off of the stapler was a little bit of a learning process. So, but it was actually a lot easier than I was making it in this particular moment. I will show you in the end how to put them back on, which is an essential, in a sense, how to get them off as well. This is me trying to figure out whether or not I broke it, because I was like, because it wasn't coming out the way that it said it was supposed to. Anyways, I was like, okay, well, we're just gonna try this, and we're gonna go and get these off of here, and then we'll attempt to make them, and then try to get them back on whenever everything is done. So legit, I just ripped these off. I mean, like, that is literally how I got them off. They were supposed to be just taken off, and you're able to put them back on. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna slowly kind of take them off of here, and then we'll go from there. So but when I put them back together, I'll show you and give you a little bit more of a better tip on how to put them back on and take them off. Basically, it's the same thing, just in reverse. So I got an order for these, which was to make a pencil. And so I started off with the front or the back side there, and I was taping it off. I was just using the size of the tape. I wasn't gonna try to get fancy and make it as far as like different sizes and that kind of thing. I was just like, I'm just gonna use the tape for what it is, and make the eraser, right? And so then at this point I was thinking, well, maybe I'll use electric tape, maybe I have something thinner. Then I decided, I was like, you know what, I'll do double-sided tape. And that way, because I had this really skinny double-sided tape, and I can do a small version of the little silver piece that goes under the eraser. So that's what I ended up doing. It also made one little area where I didn't have to put paint or glue or anything like that. So it was actually kind of helpful in the end. So then I put a piece of tape on the front side, and I just kind of taped it off so that we would have an area where we were going to put our lead, if you will. So here's where it got a little tricky for me. Now, you'll have to watch very carefully, because I actually sat there, I actually deleted about 3 minutes worth of the video, because I was sitting there thinking, how am I supposed to do the wood part? I was like, I need to, cut the triangles and everything. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna divide this out. I'm just gonna put the tape on where the wood would go, right? And I removed the part where the lead would go, and because I didn't need to paint that, and I figured I would just use some double-sided tape. So it actually took me a little bit to figure out how to do the triangles, if you will, for the wood part of the pencil. To be fair, I've only ever used templates, so for me to cut it, was just, I don't know why, I just could not, in my brain, I could not get it straight. But anyways, I put double-sided tape at the bottom there for the black. I was just like, you know what, whatever, I'll just use double-sided tape for part of it, and then I'll go in with, paint and glue and finish up the front part of that pencil piece. So I took a thinner version of the double-sided tape there and just filled that in. The bigger one, there wasn't like one that was big enough, I don't think. I was kind of measuring them out, and these two together would have been, was like perfect to go on that edge, or on that front part. So I did look at a pencil, like a piece of vinyl that looked like a pencil, and I was like, okay, I need to slice, like this. And once I did it, I was like, okay, it makes sense. But I don't know why I could not wrap my brain around that for some reason. The only thing that I wish I would have done is maybe not gone all the way down to the double-sided tape. I wish I would have maybe made it a little less like triangles. But other than that, it was perfectly fine. The point came across, you know, it's just supposed to look like a pencil, you know, that kind of thing. But I ended up doing that. I actually did the first one first, and then I did this one on film because I wanted to make sure that what I was doing was right. So anyways, let's move on. We're going to put some yellow paint in our black area there. We need to cover that because the black is going to be way too dark for the base of our yellow glitter. So I went in with my first coat of yellow paint, just yellow I had sitting up in my cabinet there, and then I just kind of slathered some paint on there, and then I let that dry, and then I went in with a second coat. I knew I was going to need probably two or three coats of paint in order to cover this and get a good base for that yellow glitter. So after that second coat dried, I went in with a coat, a little medicine cup full of paint and the glitter glue. And this was going to be, okay, this is going to be our final coat as far as color, and then we'll be able to have the glue and we'll be able to put our glitter on there. So this was after 2 coats of that, only because it had that black base. You know, I was thinking about maybe that if you would have painted this, you know, spray painted it white, but then you would be missing out on the black part for I mean, it's just whatever you think would be the best, but this was, to me, wasn't that hard. You know, this paint dries pretty quickly and it's a small area, so I just let it dry and then went in with the second coat and then went in with this glue part. So here I went in with Sunshine Yellow, and it is from Bougie Glitter Boutique. I have a code and everything down below in the description, and it was just a perfect yellow for the pencil. I mean, just a perfect pencil yellow, and it was a fine glitter, and that's one thing I would probably warn you about, is maybe sticking with just fine glitters for this. You don't want something too chunky. You're going to have to do a bunch of, you know, sanding and that kind of thing. You're not going to be putting a ton of coats of epoxy, and you're not going to be and it's not a, you know, it's a plastic base. It's not going to withstand, you know, as much pressure and things that you would put a stainless steel tumbler through, you know what I mean? So I would just stick with a very thin, fine, you know, glitter instead of like a chunky mix. So here I'm going to do the same thing with the eraser. I'm just putting this pink on here. I was going to put 1 coat, and then I was going to go in with the glue and another coat of, you know, paint at the same time, and then go ahead and put our pink bubblegum glitter from Bougie Glitter Boutique. It's a beautiful, perfect pink for an eraser, you know, and it's a thin glitter as well, so therefore you are sticking with the, you know, keeping it fine and that kind of thing with the glitter. One of the hardest things to do was to figure out how to hold this thing while it was still kind of wet and full of glitter and that kind of thing. Cami Page actually came out with a stand that you can slide on you know, on your turner rod, but it also has these little feet, so you can stick it on there and you would be able to hold it and function as far as putting it on there, you know, putting the glitter, putting the paint and everything on there, and not having to actually hold it. She did come out with it, but it was at TumblerCon, and I had not gotten one yet, but that is on my list for sure. So I did take off that double-sided tape and just used chrome from Bougie Glitter as well, and it was the perfect silver. Now, I did tap this, and I forgot that we were still dealing with wet paint and all of the wet glue and all that, so I had to go back in and touch that up just a little bit. No big deal. So here is where I was thinking that I was going to just leave the front plain black, and so I left it there for a while, but I do end up going back and putting glue over it and putting glitter. But at first I was like, I could probably just get away with that, you know. But here I'm taking off the tape, obviously, and I'm going to put on the gold there. And I used this gold paint that I got at Michael's. like forever ago. So I think anything that you have, you know, in your craft room, I don't think you have to go buy something. I'm sure you have something that's kind of a goldish color that you can, you know, put on there and work for that wood part. So this thing I did get off of Etsy, and it was like literally I got this, and then it was like the next day Cami Page introduced her little thing, and I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So anyways, this was actually it was pretty cool. The fact that you could hold 3 staplers on there was really cool. It did fit on my turner perfectly fine. So all of that was perfectly fine. The only thing was it was a little bit difficult to hold it, unlike the Cami Page one that is like has little feet, and you can kind of set it up and you can hold it from underneath and that kind of thing. So anyways, they are different. I think they do have both of them have qualities that would be beneficial. So part of the double-sided tape did not go all the way down on one side, and so I ended up having to go in and put glue. So I just went ahead and put the glue going all over the front there, and you know, I just was like, well, I'll just glitter the whole thing now that I have it here and everything. So that was when I decided that I was like, oh, let me just go ahead and touch up all these little areas, and then I will do the whole front there. So here's where I just used a, you know, something from, I think it was Martha Stewart or something like that. And I just mixed it with a little bit of CrystaLac glue. And it actually, I knew it was a little bit thicker than like acrylic. So I knew it was going to probably just one coat was going to be fine. And I was correct. So now that everything is dried and ready to go, I went ahead and put a little piece of electrical tape. For some reason, epoxy just does not like to stick to electrical tape. So I thought, you know what, I'll just put some on here just in case. I know that those little things, those little rubber pieces, I assume they're made out of silicone. I'm not sure. Or they may repel epoxy. I don't know. But I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to get it, you know, in the very beginning and just kind of have like a whole huge mess going on here. And so I thought, I'm just going to put a little bit of electrical tape. It's no harm. I mean, you know, it's just going to help me out more than anything. And so that I just wanted to kind of show y'all that little tip. And it did help out keeping those, you know, little rubber pieces clean to a point, although I did take them outside and I did spray, you know, seal them, and they did get a little bit sticky after that. That one got a little bit sticky after that. So maybe cover that up if you were going to go out, if you did not have all of them, you know. And then also, other tip I would say is to clean the inside of it out really good before you take it outside to spray paint it, because to seal it, because the sealer kind of sealed in some of those glitters underneath. Now I know it's underneath and, you know, you can't really tell, but just to keep it clean and nice and neat, you know, it's just a little tip that I wanted to let y'all know about. So I know it happened to me, but this was just, you know, this was kind of like, I know I've seen it done, and I've, you know, watched a couple of videos of some people, and but I wanted to kind of give y'all the tips and tricks of the things that I found out while doing this. So I went in with my first coat of epoxy, and I just did ever so slight little bit of epoxy. I did not want to weigh this down, you know, and I kind of did it in sections. Even though I did spray seal it, I still kind of do them in sections just to make sure that I'm not just spreading glitter everywhere. But I couldn't really tell you how much epoxy I used because I was making all kinds of things, and so I usually just mix a whole bunch together for, I usually do epoxy, like try to do it like one time a day or only once, at a time, so that I don't have to be, anyways, it's just my thing. But anyway, I just like to mix it one time, and so I'll usually mix like a big batch. So my point is, it's probably maybe 5 milliliters. If I was doing this, maybe 10 milliliters for the two. But genuinely, I really couldn't tell you exactly the amount. But if you were just doing staplers, I would maybe just say 10 to be on the safe side. If not, then you can throw it into a mold afterwards or whatever. But I was very careful to make sure to get on the bottom side of the stapler as well, to make sure that the epoxy was going all the way to cover all of the areas that were glittered. And after I let that cure, I obviously went in with another coat of epoxy. We were definitely going to need 1, 2, or 3 coats of epoxy on here before I did any kind of sanding or, cleaning up the underneath part or anything like that. So I just basically, kept them on there. I made sure that they did come up from the rubber piece and from those pieces of electrical tape. I did kind of pull it up just to make sure, and then I put them back down, and then I went into another. So I have taken these, I have sanded them, I have, cleaned up the edges just as I would do with a tumbler on the bottom side, and I took them to the sink and I washed them really good. I wanted to make sure that I was getting all of those sand pieces and everything out of there, getting any kind of glitter that was underneath out of there. And so I gave them a good wash, and then we're going in with our decals. And this, I just picked a font that looked kind of loopy or whatever, and kind of cute for these teachers. And then I just put them on there. Now, the one thing that you probably want to make sure is that you use a thicker font, something that doesn't have a lot of like small little lines or anything, because I had just ever so slight problem with these because there is a thinner, kind of pieces in some of the letters. And when you're putting them on here, you only have a certain amount of space, because I didn't want to take it all the way through to the wood or all the way through the pencil or whatever. I kind of wanted to, through the eraser, I wanted to make sure that it stayed just on that little pencil part. So if you had a bigger name, a longer name kind of thing, just be wary of that. Just kind of take that into consideration when you are picking the font and, picking how the name is going to go on there. I did seal these up with a coat of Mod Podge just to make sure that we didn't have any kind of lifting or bubbles or anything coming up from those. I went in with a coat of epoxy here. As you can see, I was making sure that I was getting all underneath and everything, because I had kind of trimmed off some of those chunkier bits that were underneath. But now I've got to make sure that my my epoxy has somewhere to stick to, right? So I kind of sanded those edges just ever so slightly. And then I went in with that coat of epoxy. So this I did not speed up at all, because I wanted to make sure that y'all saw this for like every frame, and really got the concept of how to put these back together, because this is exactly how you're going to be taking them off, just in reverse. Now, I did make sure that I went around and just kind of trimmed up any just big chunks of epoxy that were underneath, just to kind of clean it up, just to make sure that we didn't have any issues with things going back on, or being put on there and it causing a problem with, like, being in the area that we need to stick something into or whatever, So I just kind of cleaned it up just to make sure there wasn't anything, to give it a nice look as well. Okay, so this is where you're want to pause the video and like do all of that. See this little white piece right here? You're going to want to kind of pull it up and pull it up above, right? So you're going to want to pull it to the front and then pull it up, right? And then once you get your piece, you know, is done, you can take it, and there's like these two little knobs, kind of like screws or whatever at the bottom there, and they have a little area where you can slide them in. This is why it was crucial for me to make sure I cleaned up any kind of epoxy that was in those places, just in case. Now we're going to pull this back up, and we're going to, there's like a little notch that comes out, right, and there is a hole that it kind of goes into, and then you take it and push it back down in there. Now, one thing I did forget was to put the spring on there, so I went back and I pulled it back out, like, very carefully. I was like, okay, I can do this, I know I can do this. But so I had to pull it back down using those little white pieces, and that's where I was getting a little bit confused, and then pulling that back up, and then I put the spring in there, right? So the spring has to go back in there, and then you can pull that up and kind of push that little piece into the hole that's on the top, and then you push it down together, and then your staple is put back together. Okay, for the sake of learning, we're going to do this one more time because I just want to make sure that you saw, because it did take me a minute to put the first one together, and then I realized, okay, got to put the spring on, whatever. Okay, so we put the little pieces into the little knobs or the screws or whatever that are at the bottom, right? We put those in there. Then we take our spring and put that in there. Then we're going to take our little white piece that's right there and push that up so that we can get that notch that's at the top into the hole that is in the metal piece on the very top, right? Once that goes in there, we push that in, it goes back down, and we have our staplers. And there they are. So cute. Perfect for teacher gifts. I've already gotten so many orders. I will put everything down below as far as the link for Amazon, the link for the glitter, the codes, everything, all of the tools, all of the helpful things that I learned and found, and everything like that. Please join my Facebook group, and I have updated my website. I have a lot of information on there. I have a lot of tumblers on there that are ready to be shipped. And anyways, I really thank every single one of you for watching my videos. I can't believe that I have, almost 6,000 subscribers. And I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you, and that I love this. I love what I do. I absolutely adore each and every one of you, the fact that you would sit there and watch my videos. So thank you, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next time.